I spent a lot of time in this room on this thing. We definitely have a quorum, so I don't need to establish that. But there's nobody of us, of the members that are online.
Could you speak into your microphone a bit more? Sorry, it's for the recording. It'll just sound like dead air if you don't.
You can hear me without a microphone, but I'll be fine.
Well, I can, but that doesn't mean the people in the internet
So we're
world
going to
can.
call the meeting to order of the Harbor Plan Update Committee on Thursday, August 14th, opening at 5:05 in the community room at the police station. And we do have an established quorum because all of us are here but one, which is great. So if you all like to introduce yourself for the people in the audience, that'd be great.
Bill Smith, Vice Chair of the Small Vest Body.
For decades. Dave?
Dave Franzero.
Peter?
Peter Brace.
Steve?
Stephen Limbach.
Christina, our new member?
Christina Jelemy.
Okay. Linda Williams, Chair.
And
we're missing
Emily
only one
Mulvin.
member. And Emily, what are you doing way over there? Fine. Emily's over
She's
there.
channeling her inner Libby.
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay, we don't actually have to do a roll call.
I know, I was
It's been
stumped.
2 years since we haven't had a roll call. Okay, introduction to the harbor plan. We've been working on this, I don't know, over 2 years now?
2.5.
2.5?
2 years every other week through
Give or take.
the entire year.
Yeah, very
No,
few
we met
breaks.
monthly for a few months before we went to two months.
Yeah, when we started really rolling, trying to put this thing together and looking at the old one and then going through the old one from 2010,
2009.
2009. We wanted to make sure that we captured everything from the old one, brought it forward, and figured out what had been accomplished, what still needed to be accomplished.
What didn't need to be
What
accomplished?
didn't need to be accomplished was quite a few things, because times have changed. But then we are also dealing with climate change and the floodplains changing and FEMA's maps changing. And obviously, because we're the harbor plan, we concentrated on Mattocket Harbor, and we expanded it to include the ditch and a few other areas around Mattocket Harbor and the town harbor. So we had to get those maps approved by the state. Anything else on setting this all up? Okay. So that's how we arrived at this. And we went through painstakingly every single page and every single recommendation and every single goal and solutions and who was going to carry the ball forward, which department. So it was very labor intensive by our cracked crew here. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Kim Starbuck, I'm with the Urban Harbors Institute at UMass Boston.
Kristen Uterwick, also with UHI at UMass Boston.
Go ahead, guys, up there. Steve, Jack, Shannon.
Shannon Hogan, I'm with the Urban Harbors Institute at UMass Boston.
Jack Wigan, you at Urban Harbors.
Steve McKenna, Mass Coastal Zone Management.
So we had a very experienced guiding crew keeping us on task, and every time we would change stuff and they would redo it and send it back to us, and we'd meet and change it again, and then change it again, and then change it again. So they have done a magnificent job of putting this together. We've had a couple of public forums. We had one that was really well attended back at the Nantucket Hotel, but we have 50, 60 people there, representing all different facets. We had residents of Mattocket, we had fishermen, we had all kinds of people, and they all have specific interests and things that are missing from the waterfront to make their lives easier. So we've pretty comprehensive. Jeff Carlson from Natural Resources has kept us together.
Madam Chairwoman,
And Peter? Peter did the minutes, we can't forget that.
not all of them. And let's not forget all the individual interviews that were done of people that volunteered to do that, people we sought out,
Yep.
dozens and dozens of people to get their opinions.
stakeholders of all
Yeah.
kinds, Sheila Lucy from the Marine Department, planning, Holly Backus, historic preservation from the town, because a lot of what we're doing is going to affect historic structures along the waterfronts in both harbors. We have left no stone unturned. Phil?
I think it's worth pointing out, too, that we tried to look forward and add anything that could conceivably come up in the next 10 years when supposedly this plan is updated again. And because if any action is taken before that, the state will get involved, and the state will say, well, let's look at your 2025 plan. And if it wasn't in there, that would slow any effort down, so that we tried to anticipate anything that might come up in the next 10 years. And I am sure we did not catch everything.
It's a living document. If we had talked about it quite often, we talked about this being a living document. We've talked quite often about if things change as far as tide flows and flooding and things like that, within the 10 years, we would revisit this at some point between the 10 years, because things are going to change much more rapidly now. That 100-year storm in 1991, or whatever the no-name storm, what's happening every year? Forget the 100 years. It's going on every year.
I think the other thing is that there needs to be a group, committee, or whatever we want to call it,
Implementation.
that's going to take this plan, once it is quote-unquote approved, and execute on it. In other words, we have been very intentional in trying to make goals things that actually can be accomplished and measured, and not just talk. And that took a discussion in and of itself in our deliberations, but trying to come up with what actually could be done. And so there is going to be a follow-up committee that's going to deal with these things and try to make them happen. And if they can't make them happen, understand why they can't make them happen. But there is a temptation to just throw everything in that you could possibly think of and not have specific objectives, and that really defeats the purpose.
There's also, as with a lot of reports from the town, the tendency to throw them on a shelf and say, bye, I'll see you in 10 years and we'll fix it. I don't believe that's going to happen with this. There was a very active implementation committee. I was on the first one, to write the first one, but there was a very active implementation committee. Most of the members were not on the creation of the report. So that's how some things got lost between what we had done and the implementation committee. But I hazard a guess that some of us will be on both committees this time to have some continuity. Dave?
Yeah, this is my third one, and I'm hoping that we don't let this one expire like we did the 2009 one, that we revisit this again in 4 or 5 years, because things are changing really dramatically. But you also have to understand that this plan, like the 2009 one, will be adopted and signed off on by the state. So then any licensing or actions that people in the community want to take, it gets a higher level of review, because our plan will be adopted by the state, just like the 2009 one. And that helps in permitting for Chapter 91 licenses and enforcement and all types of review, grant writing. I know several communities, some of which I worked with, that don't have a state-approved plan. And as Linda points out, that plan seriously does just sit on the shelf. And when you go to reference it to try and get something done, or get someone's attention, or get something undone, it doesn't have any teeth, and this plan will have that. So it's very important to realize that it'll be a state-approved plan.
And two of the biggest problems with the first plan, as well as any plan like this, is education, education, education.
And
That
enforcement.
came, and enforcement. Those two things came up over and over and over during the entire review of this plan. And we tried to get a little bit more aggressive, shall we say, in trying to ensure enforcement or who's going to enforce it. And education has almost in every single section, because if you don't understand, you can't leave the boat in the middle of the harbor, and what the implications are of that, there is a big problem, because that's causing a lot of trouble now, people illegally doing it. So how do we do that? How do we work with Sheila Lucy down at the Marine Department? Because a lot of this is coming through the Marine Department, and they need more staff, and there's other things that we are recommending to support her efforts out there in the harbor, particularly more staff. Anybody else over there want to add anything? Okay, so I think what we will do now is do the overview of the harbor plan and purpose, because then I throw it to you, since you've covered a lot of it. Throw it to you.
I get to go first.
You get to go first.
All right. So again, good evening, everyone. I didn't actually introduce myself when I started. I'm Jeff Carlson. I'm the Director of the Natural Resources Department. And with me tonight, if we get other questions that are natural resources related, Tara Riley, our Shellfish and Aquatic Resources Manager, is here. And really what we're here to do tonight isn't to necessarily go through the harbor plan page by page. That's what these guys have done, is to really hear from the folks that are here, the folks that are on the webinar, and give people a chance to comment on some of the components and what's in there, what we think is good, what we think needs improvement, things that got missed, things that, all of those things that are there. And just to create an opportunity to do that with the committee present, knowing full well that there's also an opportunity to still submit comments in writing. We'll go over it again a little bit later. This plan is close to the end, but it's still got a little ways to go, where following this meeting, there'll be a few more committee meetings to make any last minute changes, and then we start into the formal public hearing process with the select board. And then once they've adopted it, it can go up to the state. So if you don't think of your comment tonight, please share it with us later. If you don't remember the contact info, you can always find us at the Natural Resources Office. So that's our purpose tonight, is to kind of give a real high-level overview and description, and to hear from you guys.
And the draft is online on the town website, and that little code thing, I have a flip phone, so that little thing, I don't even know what it's called. QR code,
Yes.
you can do that, and it will come up on any of the flyers and stuff and ads that you see around town, but I'm very happy with my flip phone, I can't do that.
Yep.
Phil?
So when we got started, the committee was comprised by the select board with a kind of a diversity of interests, kind of modeled after the 2009 plan, where we have representatives. Obviously, I won't run through everybody, but folks that are users of the harbor, some folks at large, and trying to represent kind of a diversity of interests that are there. The staff level this time was our Office of Natural Resources. I think with the primary thrust of the update being looking at resiliency and adaptation to things like climate change and sea level rise, were a big component. It wasn't part of the 2009 plan. So it was kind of a natural fit. That's part of our programming currently. But it was a real pleasure to get to work with such a diversity of people. All right, go ahead. So again, I said it before, the goals tonight are to not listen to us talk, because we talk about this a lot. It's to hear from the folks that are here. So please feel free to share. Again, if you can't think of anything, you can always comment through the Google Forms. Just kind of procedural for tonight. If you're online, obviously, please raise your hand and you can be moved to speak. And we'll call on you to do such. We'll help the chair. If you're in the room, if you could please come up to one of the microphones to give your comment. If you're an attender of the select board meetings or a lot of the regulatory boards, it's kind of that same procedure, so it can make it onto the recording. Please introduce yourself, just because we have to keep minutes of this too. And we'll take your comment and hopefully have some good dialogue. And I think with that, I will hand it off to Phil first, and then off to Kim and Kristen.
I think it's important to point out that you will see that we identified responsible parties, interested parties. This plan is really just been put together in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So the people that we identify as responsible parties and interested parties are just seeing this for the first time. I mean, I know, for example, I'm on the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee, and you will see in this plan, there were several instances where we note roads and right-of-way. They're just seeing the plan now. In fact, our monthly meeting is coming up next Tuesday, and this is what we're going to be talking about. So just because it's in here doesn't mean anybody has approved anything. It's going to be new for a lot of people. I know my wife's on the health, Department of Health, and they're just now digging into it, and there's a lot of health department issues. So this is still early days for a lot of the committees that are identified in this, and we'll be interested to hear what they have to say.
The comment period is open until August 31st at the moment. Your turn.
All right, thank you. Again, Kim Starbuck with Urban Harbors, and I have a number of slides, but I'm going to try to go through them as quickly as possible, and then if you guys have questions later, you can let me know. But first, we just wanted to kind of back up a little bit and talk about why develop a harbor plan. So this is an update to the 2009 plan. And really what we're looking to do is identify what are the goals and visions for the town's waterways, what's really important to the town in terms of how the waterways are being used, what big issues are happening within the town and the town's waterways, and then how can we develop recommendations that are going to improve conditions. This plan talks about important topics, as we've noted already, like boating, fishing, climate change, public access. It is a long plan. It's like 131 pages to be exact, so I'm sure nobody here has really read everything word for word, but we really dive into those topics in this plan. And then as Dave noted, this is meant to inform state decisions regarding activities happening on Nantucket, because as he noted, this is going for state approval. And you can see our planning area on this map. Let me see if you can see my mouse. Yes. So here is Nantucket Harbor. So these are the areas that we're really looking at in terms of what are the big issues happening, how can we help to alleviate some of these issues. So we've got Nantucket Harbor, and then we have Madaket Harbor, and then we have the two islands out here, Tuckernuck and Muskeget. Sorry, didn't mean to advance that. So those are the areas that we really are focusing on for the plan.
Can I add something to that real quick?
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt. One of the big changes, the planning area from the 2009 plan to this plan changed, and that change was essentially centered around expanding the area, that's what I just said, the area to include that kind of first primary flood zone. So it'd be like the A zone if you really want to get nerdy. There's elevations that go with that. But again, that's that area of coastal flooding risk that we expanded into in an effort to try to pick up some of the resiliency concerns.
Great, thank you. All right, and I'm just going to go through this really quick because this is something that I believe also Dave had noted. Just that we are going for state approval with this. Some towns just go for municipal approval. This is state, so it does kind of elevate it, and it helps when states are making decisions about licensing and other permitting that's happening on Nantucket. And this, you can just kind of see the general flow that has happened, and where the circle is where we are right now. So first, the town initiated this process. It's a voluntary procedure. And then, building off of that 2009 plan. And then there's been a number of steps, including a number of opportunities for public comment and a lot of meetings with these committee members, as we talked about. And then after we go through this public comment period up until August 31st, then we're going to take all the comments, integrate those into the plan, talk to the committee and see what works, what doesn't work. And then we're going to have another draft, which then is going to go to the select board. And at that point, we'll have a final plan that then will go to the state for their approval. And this is our timeline. So you can just kind of see where we're at. We are hopefully nearing the end of this process. We are at public meeting number 4, and we'll have a couple other public meetings. One when we go for the municipal approval, which hopefully should happen this fall, and then the state approval as well. There's a public hearing. So there are a couple other opportunities to participate. But really, right now, it's we want to hear from you about this draft plan. And we already talked about comments
Kim,
and
hang on one-
questions.
Stay right there on the public comments. We had a lot of public comment, and we went over. We had charrettes at each table. We went over. So if you have comments, we will take them seriously, because we went over every single comment that came in from that first meeting and the subsequent meetings and surveys. So we take public comment incredibly seriously, because they did bring up items that we hadn't covered at that point. So don't be afraid to express your opinions or concerns or things you'd like to see in it, because we digest every single one of them.
Thanks, Linda. And just something to note, we did do a public survey back in the summer of 2023, and we had over 500 survey responses, which was a record for us. So that was really good, and we did take all of those comments very seriously as well. Comments and questions, we already talked about this. So in-person people can provide public comment up at the mic once we're done with the presentation. Online, so we don't believe there's actually a chat function on the Zoom right now. So online people can raise their hand and then have an opportunity to talk. And please keep your questions or comments to no more than a minute. And we'll do our best to respond here, or if it's just a comment, to note it. And we have note takers online. Okay, so here are the topics in the plan: water quality, natural resources, public access, commercial and recreational fishing, commercial waterfronts, boating and navigation, coastal resiliency, which again is a new one, and then administration and coordination. And what we're going to do is I'll go through the first 4 bullets, and then once you guys are tired of hearing from me, I'll pass it over to Kristen, and she'll do the final 4 bullets. And we're just going to go over the goals and objectives for each of these bullets, and then give an example of a recommendation that maybe came out of this. So we'll try to abbreviate some of it so it doesn't get too lengthy, but that's kind of the process as to how we'll go through what's in the plan, and then provide some examples. All right, so water quality. Here are the goals and objectives that are in the plan. I don't want to read this word for word. I'll just kind of give the big high-level notes. Basically wanting to maintain and enhance water quality of both Nantucket and Mataket harbors to support the resources and the human uses of the harbors. So really looking to water quality is so important to this island. It's so important to the all the animals that live in the water, to people that are fishing in the waters, to people that are swimming in the waters. Very, very important. And it's something that really needs to be protected. So the first thing we noted is just there needs to be an increased awareness about water quality issues. And then what kinds of things can people do to help protect water quality? And that includes both people that live here, but then also people that are visiting. Another thing that we noted is the need to increase and enhance research that's focused on water quality issues, a need to improve stormwater management and the maintenance of current stormwater infrastructure, since a lot of that stormwater ends up entering the harbors and then can cause water quality issues. The need to adopt new and amend current policies, bylaws, and regulations to make sure that water quality is maintained and improved. And then the need to really reinvigorate and improve Nantucket's fertilizer licensing program. Fertilizers also can cause a lot of problems to water quality in the harbors, and there's a need to make sure we're spreading the word about fertilizer issues and then also enforcing the regulations. Just a couple recommendations just to highlight coming out of this goal. A recommendation was the need for just more public forums and outreach about water quality issues, the need for more water quality monitoring in the harbors, and then just there's kind of a common theme, the need for funding for it, obviously. And then also the potential for the town to hire a staff member that could work on all of the fertilizer issues that are happening on island. So again, that's just a sample of recommendations. You can really dive in if you want to. There are a number of pages on water quality in the plan. All right, moving into natural resources. And there are 3 goals under natural resources. The first being the need to just protect the natural resources of the harbors. And objective 1 is just to uphold what are the existing local and state protection regulations that are out there, and then also just to strengthen the natural resources regulations. There's also the need to protect and restore the eelgrass in the harbors, the need to also protect and restore salt marshes in the harbors, and then the need to manage and eradicate any sort of invasive or nuisance species and reduce the impact of those invasive species. A couple recommendations coming out of this, the need to increase funding for environmental monitoring and enforcement, which could mean charging visitors to the island an additional surtax, and some of that money could go towards environmental monitoring. Also, under Objective 2, the need for an eelgrass management plan, which actually it was already completed. So we're already moving forward with this plan, even though it hasn't even gone through all the approval. But that eelgrass management plan was completed at the end of June, so you can find that online if you want to. And then also a need to develop a formal and robust invasive species monitoring program so that the town will quickly know if there's a shift in invasive species in the harbors, because they can really come into the harbors and then just take over. So it's important to really identify that early on. 2 other goals. The second goal was to ensure that the town's natural resources and environmental decisions are based on really the best science and data out there. And an objective would be to conduct research to promote an improved understanding of the natural resources. And there are so many different topics that of research that could be conducted. We have a whole list in the plan, but there's a lot of research that needs to happen. And then the second objective is just to make sure that the best available data is used to inform decisions. So let's see, a couple other recommendations coming out of this. Is to just make sure that, the town continues to conduct research on all sorts of natural resource issues that are happening in the harbors, including what is the eelgrass population like, what's happening with the salt marshes, are they expanding, are they shrinking, and then just making sure that that information is what's being used to inform decisions. And then under goal number 3, increase the town's awareness and understanding of the value of its natural resources. And really that just is supporting the increase in education and other programs about the resources in the harbors, so that if people come into the harbors, they know that the natural resources are really important, they know what their impact on the resources is, and then they can hopefully help to not impact those resources. So finding ways to preserve the important resources here. And an example of this could be making sure that people are not storing their dinghies in salt marshes, which can happen, or making sure their kayaks are not in salt marshes, because that will damage those resources. Okay, moving into public access. So obviously accessing the waterfront is really, really important to the town. And the goal here, there's just one goal, and fairly simple, just making sure that we're preserving, improving, and creating both physical but also visual access to the waters and shorelines of the harbors. And the objectives under here is first to identify, maintain, and improve existing public access, so what's happening right now where people can actually access the shoreline. And then the second one would be strategically expanding public access to and along the shore. A couple of recommendations include making sure that all of the public access sites are mapped, and then making sure that they're all maintained well and they're safe to use. And then, for the second objective there is just the need to really expand public access points along the shore. And we have some, in the plan, there are some ideas listed as to where we might be able to expand those sites. And then my last topic here is commercial and recreational fishing. I always like to use this picture because this is a picture of my friend actually, who for 4 years tried to catch a fish out here on Nantucket, and every single time he came out, he failed. It was just, it actually became a running joke. And then this past year, he finally caught a fish. And of course, it was 1 inch too small to actually keep, but he took a picture with it and he was very excited. And so I love this picture because it's just him failing over and over again. Okay, so goal here would be to sustain, protect, and improve the commercial and recreational fisheries to ensure their continued economic benefit to Nantucket. Lots of fisheries happening out here. A big one is the Nantucket Bay Scallop, and it's incredibly important to Nantucket's history and culture, and wanting to make sure that that is sustained, protected, and improved. And objective 1 is to maintain, improve, and create infrastructure and shoreside support for fishing activities. Second objective is to develop, promote, and expand maritime workforce of Nantucket through making sure that young adults and school-age kids might get interested in the fisheries in the future. Third objective, regularly reviewing and updating the Shellfish Management Plan and the regulations. Another would be improving enforcement and education about shellfish regulations. And then the fifth is to preserve, protect, and enhance the shellfish populations and their habitats. So under this one, some ideas are to improve waterfront access for fisheries and then also seek new access. Work on connecting the younger generation with the island's shellfish and aquaculture industry, and then reviewing and updating the Shellfish Management Plan, which I believe it was last completed in 2013. Is that right? Sometime around then. So it's been a little while. It needs to be updated. All right. So Kristen now is going to take over with commercial waterfronts.
Thanks, Kim. All right. So working waterfronts are important everywhere in the Commonwealth, but I think that's especially true for you guys as an island community. And so the first goal is really to preserve the working waterfronts nature of both Nantucket and Madaket Harbor. We start with an objective about discouraging the displacement of existing water-dependent uses by non-water-dependent uses, and really prioritizing uses that need to have access to water. Objective 2 is to just continue to regulate the construction of new and expansion of existing private docks, wharves, and piers, which has already been done, I think, in the last harbor plan through the zoning bylaw in the Harbor Overlay District. Objective 3 is to address the gap in fuel here on Nantucket, and really trying to think of how to make sure that people who need marine fuel have access to it. Objective 4 is really thinking about what happens if there's disruption to the existing navigation channels, or something happens in downtown Nantucket and boats and people can't get in and out of the harbor. It's really giving some thought to some redundancy for y'all. And objective 5 is to ensure that the support system of infrastructure and facilities and management and haul outs and all of that is really available to support the water dependent uses. For recommendations, they're very much in line with the objectives here on how to provide alternative fuel sources, how to really create priority space on the waterfront for folks like those who hold aquaculture licenses, and really making sure that the Harbor Overlay District's regulations are enforced and reviewed on a regular basis to make sure they're accomplishing what they were intended to accomplish. The second goal for commercial waterfront section is to improve landside transportation and accessibility, really around the ferry terminals. I came in today, it was chaos. I got booted off the sidewalk a couple times. If I were carrying luggage or anything like that, I'm not sure. I think I'd still be down by the ferry. So this is really about addressing the circulation patterns, especially with any replanning of ferry terminals and thinking through coastal resilience, as those plans get underway, just making sure that folks are engaged, that the Harbor Implementation Committee that's developed as a result of this planning process is engaged, to make sure that those plans reflect the needs of the public and of other harbor and waterfront users. So moving on to boating and navigation. Sorry, turn my page. So this is really about safety and balancing uses while still maintaining the character and protecting the natural resources. So this is a giant balancing act. Really, objective 1 is about identifying and making sure that the carrying capacity of the harbor is not exceeded. They have, there is sort of an anecdotal account of how many boats should be in the harbor. Looking at it today, it seems like it's very congested, and one of the recommendations under this objective is to really think about what is the true carrying capacity of the harbor. Objective 2 is to, as you think about the carrying capacity, also think about where there are gaps in access for the boating and navigation community, and really focusing on small boat access, which seems to be lacking. As part of this balancing act, making sure that natural resources are protected. Kim went through all of the important things with regard to natural resources and water quality. Those are directly impacted by boating and navigation activities. And then also improving boater and harbor safety. I already mentioned that carrying capacity is a recommendation under this section. Another one is to maintain and monitor enforcement of boating activities, just to protect natural resources. So that'd be things like making sure that people are following the no wake zone rules and anchoring in the proper places, that type of thing. Goal 2 is to ensure smooth, uninterrupted, and continued operation in the event of a significant maritime disaster, storm, or accident. So again, thinking about that redundancy. This involves things like making sure that the shoreside infrastructure is adequate for the boats in the harbor. So could all the vessels be hauled or moved to safe places in the event of an emergency, and really making sure that that's done in a timely manner. So the recommendations in this section involve developing that storm mitigation plan, thinking about boat hauling, thinking about public education. Do all boaters have a strategy for when storms are coming? Also thinking about whether or not wave attenuation in Matticat Harbor could be done, possibly through using an oyster reef. So figuring out what sort of nature-based approaches might help with this need. And then just making sure that dredging is happening where it's needed and when it's needed, and that any efforts to plan for sea level rise and storm impacts take into consideration the needs of the boating community. I think that covers recommendations in that section. Then we get to coastal resilience, which, as Jeff said, is new to this plan, so you won't see anything in the 2009 plan. And in fact, my very first plan was the 2009 plan, and I think about coastal resilience as it's gained acceptance, I guess I would say, over the last 20 years, and how we went from not having it in the plan to it being a cross-cutting theme in this plan. So in all of the sections that we've already presented on, climate change comes up, but then there's also a specific section on coastal resilience, just to make sure that we're catching everything that hadn't already been caught. I should note that Woods Hole Group was another partner on this project, and they were really involved in this section. I don't believe Dak is here, but Dak Stewart was our lead with Woods Hole Group, and they were a great asset to this portion of the project. As you might expect, one of the goals is to minimize and prepare for the impacts of climate change. And we really focused on things like sea level rise and coastal flooding and erosion. And so we should note that we are well aware of the existing coastal resiliency plan, and this does not intend to replace that in any way. We worked closely with CRAC as we were developing the regulations and the background information. So this is, you'll see in the objectives, it's support, continue, right? So Nantucket is already well on its way to thinking about resiliency and planning for it. And this plan is just trying to reinforce the good work, and then also incorporate some of the information that we heard specific to the planning, the harbor planning topics. So the objectives are to support the implementation of the coastal resilience plan, to continue to increase collaboration in education and outreach, think about infrastructure, which reduces the risks of coastal hazards, really focused on nature-based approaches where they're possible. Funding, as Kim said, is a constant. Funding and education, as Linda said, are constant throughout the plan. So really thinking about how do you fund some of this resilience and adaptation work, and then just making sure that resilience and adaptation are integrated into regulations and bylaws. A lot of this a lot of the recommendations in here are, again, very linked to the language you see here in the objectives, addressing known data gaps such as groundwater and sea level rise, thinking about where things are going to breach, just really getting a handle on some of that. Again, I think some of this work is underway. Really trying to engage with environmental justice communities. I will say we tried to do that as part of this project. We had a member who was closely linked with the environmental justice community. We've done a number of outreach in alternative languages to try and get them engaged too, and we want to make sure that they're continuing to be a part of these discussions. And then administration and coordination, which seems a little boring, right? But is actually, I think, as Linda and Phil were talking about, really what this comes down to. So implementation, right? We've developed this plan. It's been about 2.5 years. We don't want it sitting on the shelves. We really want folks to be implementing it. So designing an implementation strategy and creating a harbor plan implementation committee are primary objectives. Making sure that the folks who are involved in harbor management, natural resource management, everything, that they're all talking to each other and coordinating. And again, really thinking about the vulnerabilities to natural events and figuring out who needs to be at the table for those conversations. And then goal 2 is further in that spirit of collaboration, really trying to think about how do you ensure that the implementation committee is engaged in the decision-making processes that are ongoing and that will be forthcoming. And then again, funding. So funding for the harbor master, for natural resources, data, research, resource management, enforcement, a number of other things. So I think that that's the last of the topics. As Kim said, there's a lot more detail in the plan itself. And then in addition to the goals, objectives, and recommendations that we ran through quickly, there's a whole background section that sort of gives you the larger context to understand the content that we just went through. So it is a long plan. Feel free to thumb to the page that's of the topic that's most interesting to you. And we're happy to take your comments and questions. Just if you have questions here in the room, as Jeff said, if you would come up to the microphone and share who you are and ask your question, that would be great. We also have note cards, so if you don't like speaking in public and you want to write very clearly what your question is, we'd be happy to take them by note card. If you're online, feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you. And we didn't know what size crowd this was going to be, so we were thinking if we had more people that we would have to limit time, but I think we have ample time to take questions and comments, so we can disregard the 1 minute limit. And I think, oh, the other thing, just we forgot to say at the beginning, there's a sign-in sheet at the end, so we'll be distributing the final plan and information about the select board meeting and the state hearing process. So if you want to get information on all of those things, please just put your name and your contact information on that sign-in sheet before you leave. And with that,
Just to add on while people flood to the microphones. Again, if you think of something today, there's the online comment period that goes with it. But if it's more of a question, you can always feel free to reach out. I know our emails are at the end of the presentation. Tara and I are obviously both on island all the time. Feel free to call or pop into the office or email and set up a time. We're happy to try to answer questions or get resources to people. And the committee will still be continuing to meet in their regular public meetings. So obviously, if you feel like you have something you'd like to add or you leave the room like I always do and say, I wish I would have said this, there's lots of opportunities to do that. So someone can kick it off. Let's roll in.
It's always me. I do have a bunch of questions, but I'm going to send them as you suggested. My biggest concern, having just reviewed it very briefly, is the Historic District Commission going to be considered stakeholders in this overall process? Because a lot of the infrastructure, raising, moving, shifting, buildings, docks and everything, I feel like we should have some input in. we did participate in some sort of survey, and maybe it's what you were talking about, the Woods Hole group, a while back, maybe last year, and there was some discussion about that, and I was just wondering if we could possibly fit into this process and, yeah, before it becomes regulation and bylaw, and we haven't had any input. It is such a, that's everything to us. That's our resource. So I would just ask that we would be considered, and my detailed questions I'll send you.
Val, we
Thank you.
reached out, I took the whole thing to Holly a long time ago, so
I
we
know,
reached out
that's
to Holly.
Holly. That's not the commission.
But, and plus, she's also the coastal resiliency, so there's a lot of that
Right.
going on. But I think the HDC, we figured that through the office, the staff, it would get to the HDC. If you can bring it up with them and get back to us with what you really want to know about it. Because I brought it up, obviously, about the
I
impact on
think
the
one of the
historic
things we
waterfront.
saw was like a boardwalk shooting up into the
Yes.
air and looking like it was swooping down like
And raising Easy Street and all that other stuff.
those rides
Yeah.
that go, and that was, obviously not a good solution, so.
Yeah. Well, if you want it to be formally brought to the HDC and have you have a formal response, that'd be great. Because, as I say, I brought it up. It's been a topic. We did have Holly come to the meeting about the coastal resiliency versus the historic structures all along the waterfront in town in particular. So we are well aware that that has a major impact here.
Right.
That's great. If you want to send the
I
questions.
just didn't see any of that listed in the stuff that was online, so I'm just bringing that up.
That's great.
Thank you.
Okay. Campbell?
Hi, Campbell Sutton. I went to a number of the public meetings. And I think at most of them, I had a couple of, well, one thing in particular, and that's elder access, right? Making sure that not at every single beach or every single area, but that we not forget about the elders that still want to get to the water. And I'd love one of those little, they have them on pools where you pick people up and drop them into their boat, That'd be very handy and much safer for some of the elder people getting into their boats. The other question I really had as I was listening is there's a lot of enforcement here. And I'm just, I guess I'm sort of wondering whether this enforcement goes to different group, I don't know if groups is the right word, but, where coastal resiliency enforcement is one place and another kind is another place, another kind's another place. Because I really, at the size that we have become, I sort of feel like we need to streamline some of that and not be like, oh, well, sorry, we don't do that. That'll be someone else. And we get to where we've been over the years, which is we all know we really don't have any enforcement that's effective. And I would really love to see some of the boat sizing and things like that. I mean, I'm out on the harbor and there's masses of eelgrass right now, huge islands coming in. And, you see those boats out there, just huge boats. I don't even know how fast they're going, but, they have to hit a lot of that eelgrass that we're trying to maintain. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
And Campbell, we've had a lot of discussion about eelgrass beds, preservation of eelgrass, how to protect them. I mean, all the impacts on them between fertilizer, between boat engines, and we've spent a lot of time, and I know Emily had a big thing on the eelgrass. So this has been a major topic for us for quite some time,
Right.
is the eelgrass beds. Dave,
Ma'am?
you got to turn this on and speak into it.
Yeah. Are you talking, you said something about handrails, and I'm getting to the elderly point. But my point is
Most of us on this committee.
are you talking about those handrails that they have on the dock that you can use to get in and out of the boat, the high ones? Is that what you're
I'm
talking
not
about?
sure exactly what it is, but it's more of a seat.
It's a more of a what?
It's more of a seat, like you sit in, like at the community pool has one where you sit in the seat. It's elevated, you sit in the seat. It turns
And puts
and
you
then
back.
lowers you down.
Into the water.
Yeah,
Okay.
Can't really do that at a beach,
All
but you
right.
can in a pool.
or to a boat. I mean, I have a boat that I have, it's a little Boston whaler, but we got it because it has a flat area on the bow so
Right.
that
You
when
can
I
s-
get mom there,
Right.
she can sit on that and we can twist her in, but she's 94.
Right.
So this ability to get over the sand is being challenged. I know like people, older people like to go see the Rainbow Parade for Opera House Cup.
Right.
We really don't have anything that
Well,
helps with that. Not that that's part of this, but just,
Well, that's part of access, Campbell, to
Yeah.
Brant Point,
Yeah.
to all the public access ways. A lot of them, the jetties had the Moby mats,
Yeah.
and we had the handicap wheelchairs for years,
Wheelchairs.
because the commission, when I was on the Commission on Disability, we bought 4 of those
Right.
with the large tires and stuff. So you're right, not enough is being done for the disabled to actually go to some of the more off the beaten path public access areas.
yeah, and
So
some of
Moby
the
mats are
shorter
removable.
ones, like Jetties is great, but it is a long haul
Long haul.
from the parking lot to the water line.
Yeah,
Can I say something?
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well,
You're more elder.
well,
I don't know about that, guys.
I'm actually very involved with the Opera House Cup. And we started a few years ago, the parade. We've always had the Rainbow Parade, but we added in the parade with the boats going out to the starting line. And as a matter of fact, I think we are, my wife Ann, who's sitting back here, actually has spoken with people. We're going to have those, I don't know if they're wheelchairs or what do you call them, big tires.
Yeah.
They're going to
Handicap
get people,
wheelchairs.
to take people out to the shore, to
Oh,
the edge.
great.
So that will be very cool. This is the first year. I didn't even know this type of thing was available, but
No, that's excellent. I know
So-
several people that will definitely take advantage of that.
and we also reached out to Sherburne Commons, and they're going to have a van taking people out.
Excellent.
So we're trying to, I mean,
Because I pay the $50 ticket every year to park where you're not allowed to park, so that I can get mom to the beach.
well, she should come Sunday morning,
Yes.
and she should get
planning
there
on
about
it.
8:30, and it's going to be a lot of people out there.
Yes, there usually is. It's
But we'll be
lovely.
handing
there.
out brochures. Don't get, I can keep going, but I won't.
That's okay. I will take note and I will spread the word.
And Linda, can I also?
Madam Chairman, I'm sorry.
Peter?
I just want to make sure that everyone understands that even though during the creation of the plan, we did get as granular as we're getting right now, the specific things that we think that each objective and goal and recommendation should make happen. We stayed fairly general, saying we want these things to happen, but this committee isn't going to make those things happen, and these aren't going to be bylaws and regulations. Those things might come out of this. But when this committee is over, some of us will morph into another committee, which will be the Harbor Plan Update Implementation Committee, which will then go through all the recommendations, find the entity, the town entity that'll make them happen. So what you're talking about is that stage of this.
Okay,
Just because you don't see it and see every little detail that you want in this plan, doesn't mean they're not going to happen. They're covered in a broad stroke with the goals, objectives, and recommendations. So
Super.
just because you don't see it in the plan doesn't mean it isn't going to happen. When we do the implementation process, that's when we're going to, as everyone says, drill down and say to the NRD, you need to do this, or the right-of-way committee needs to make a recommendation to the select board because we need to do this, or whatever. So,
Excellent, thanks, Peter. Yeah, I just sort of try and keep hold of that elder access thing, because,
I have it starred here to bring that up at our next
Yeah.
meeting, because access means access to all, able-bodied and those who have
Right.
difficulty navigating. So I have that, because I was heavily involved in that before, so I think that'll be a topic of discussion at the next meeting.
But to Peter's point, it's ideas like that that get carried forward. Because you struck on two things for my memory and to-do list, is those high handicap rails on the docks. You've seen them, they're yellow, usually they're yellow, and they're right on the dock, and it helps the people get in and out of the boat. And as far as your point about the swing seat thing, years ago, we had one at the town pier.
Yes.
I
At
thought
the-
I remembered
Yeah, we
seeing
had
one,
one.
yeah.
At the handicap, there's two handicap slips there.
Yep.
And we had one at that. So we need, but to your point, those are the kinds of things that, we need to remember and find them or redo it.
Okay,
But,
And it
Thank-
should
thank
be
you.
in the plan.
Great.
It really, we do need to reference what the word access
yeah,
means.
yeah.
And I think that's something we need to flesh out in the plan, so it's very clear that we're not just talking like, I can drive to a beach, I got bad knees. I need a Moby mat. I can't just walk through the sand most of the time. And so all of us are approaching that, except for the
well, we're
younger
all
people at the other end of the
collectively
table.
moving forward
We do
in
have a,
time.
That's a great point,
Thanks
Campbell.
for your comment.
Thank
we
you.
do have a couple of hands online, Madam Chair.
Was there anybody else, I want to take the room first. Anybody else in the room before we move up to the online? Okay,
All right, I'm going to bring Scott Allard in first.
Scott who?
Allard, Allard. All right,
Hello,
Scott, you
this
should be
is
able to
Scott.
speak. All right,
Can you
go
hear
ahead,
me
sir.
okay?
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you. And first, thanks for the work you guys have done. I have actually read most of this plan. I am a harbor visitor out on a boat as we speak. I've been doing that for 15 years. And there's a lot of good stuff in this plan. And I know that a ton of work has gone into it. The comment that I would like to add is that the considerations for accessibility, I hope, will take into account accessibility in the opposite direction from boat to land, because there has been an erosion of that capability over the years here in the harbor. And, whether that's implemented in terms of a loading and loading zone where there's no parking, but loading and unloading, a place where a sling could be put, handicapped access, for example, is a great idea. I recognize that there's a ton of priorities that this plan addresses, and this is but a small one, but I would love to see the maritime tradition of this harbor maintained through access from the boats onto the property. Thank you.
Good point. Again, access goes both ways. Thank you. I think we have another one.
We have one more, Bill Kingston. I'm going to move him over.
Yeah.
All right, Bill, if you unmute, you should be able to speak. Bill, are you there? All right, we'll move him back.
He's in his kitchen.
Or he's downtown in the traffic. Like we all are.
I will say, sometimes that's also indicative of people that are
Losing
not
hours a
wanting
day.
to positively participate. Is a nice way to put that. It happened to the health meeting earlier today so
Is there anybody else up there?
that's it.
Okay. Well, don't all jump up at once.
I'll just say, if Bill has another comment, please feel free to reach out by email and we'll address it then.
Hi, this is Bob Starbuck.
You can raise the thing. Yeah, there you go.
I don't think this is relevant to the master
Is
plan
your
and all
name
that.
Bob Starbuck?
Yes.
Are you related to
I'm
Kim?
somewhat related to her.
I was going to say.
Was he a ringer?
He's a plant.
Yeah, I'm a plant, yeah.
Another Starbuck, you know, what can we
He had to
say?
bring friendly people?
But anyway, I know this isn't really relevant to the master plan because it's not something that will ever be at a concentration that will cause an issue in the waters. But just, I'm thinking, you know, we're talking about eel intrusion, not the eel intrusion, the crabs and other things as an issue. The other thing is maybe, you know, making sure that the waters are chemically clean. You know, you're not going to have a PFAS issue, but there might be other chemicals that are out there that are starting to get more we're starting to get more knowledgeable about, and that we have something in the future plan to address those types of issues.
I think a lot of that is included in the water quality section, and I know Emily has a lot to do with that, because all the chemicals going around the harbor are impacting the harbor. Let's face it, big fertilizer. If you got green grass and you have harborfront property, you're not getting that from natural stuff. Let's face it. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on that's actually leaching into the harbor, and that's where the harbor, the quality, water quality, all contributes to that.
One of the things I think maybe is a bit controversial is for visiting boaters to have someone put in a dye tab in the holding tank when they get on their mooring. The technology is there. Who would do this? Nantucket Moorings, the harbor master, but the fact of the matter is that that would certainly be one way to deal with it. But the execution, we went around and around on this, but I think we all thought it was a good idea. But how do we do it? I mean, this is going to be for the implementation committee to come up with some suggestions. But this is a type of thing that, and then I asked the question, I thought this was interesting. I asked a question because the example I think, Kim, we had was out in California. And I said, hey, is there anybody here in the Commonwealth? Rather than looking to California. And Dave talked with all of his, buddies, harbor masters, and you can't find anybody here that's doing it.
I talked to Harbor Masters Association, which represents all those guys, and there's nobody else doing it. And we've never run into a problem of people saying they don't want the dye tabs. They don't like the penalty when they pump overboard and there's this big fluorescent green sheen around their boat. But they're continuing to do that. And my argument with that, my additional argument with that is that it needs to be a requirement of Nantucket Moorings to do it because they contact every single boat that comes in. So it shouldn't only be just the harbor master. It would be far better to be able to slide up along a boat with the pump out boat and say, did Nantucket Moorings give you your dye tablet? And the answer be yes. And if the answer is no, then you give them one, or you watch them put it in. But yeah, it's interesting that there's no other community, and McKenna can speak to this better than I, but most of Massachusetts is now a federal no discharge zone. Nantucket was the second federal no discharge zone in the country, and interestingly enough, we pump more sewage than any other community. Last year it was around 130,000 gallons of sewage, which goes directly to the sewage treatment plant. There are a lot of communities that have pump out programs, and then they have to double handle it. They put it in a truck, and then they have to truck it to another community, truck it to the waste facility. So we're very fortunate that we're tied into the boat basin's tied into the sewer, the yacht club, Great Harbor Yacht Club, et cetera. But yeah, I found it quite interesting that we're the only ones doing dye tabs.
Well, what's different about Nantucket is that we are really a very isolated harbor, a very contained harbor. We don't have the open water direct access like a lot of the coastal communities in Massachusetts. So we have more of an impact on this kind of stuff than most other harbors in the Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maine, anybody else with harbor fronts. They're much more wide open. New Bedford's much more wide open. I've been to Mystic, they're wide open. We're not wide open. So what goes on in that harbor, the tide change is not going to get it out. So that's why we are much more cognizant of the negative impact of all the stuff that's coming in that harbor that can't get out of the harbor. So we've paid a lot of attention to that. Emily?
Yeah, just to also respond to the first part, there is a recommendation under water quality that speaks to assessing new and emerging contaminants as well as needed. So I think that probably catches your first question and is something that we can talk a little bit more about during implementation of how that's carried forward over time. And yeah, I think it's great that through the Harbor Master, we have been providing the dye tabs and having the recommendation in here to make that, as Dave said, more of a requirement. I think that again, during implementation, there can be further discussion about how to most effectively do that and who should be in that role, so.
But during the implementation part of it, we're going to need broad community support, because a lot of what we have in here about the enforcement, the education, all the rest of it is going to require an increase in staffing for Jeff, for the harbor master, for various departments that are going to be involved with this. Terrace department, they need more staff. They simply cannot monitor all the aspects that are affecting the harbors with the current staffing. So we need funding, we need staffing. This is a lot of it is, that's why a lot of it's languishes, because we don't have staff. It's been cut over the years, budgetary concerns for many towns, not unlike Nantucket. So that is a big deal on implementing this plan, is funding and staffing. We can sit here and say we need funding and staffing until the cows come home, but if we don't get backing from the community, whether it's town meeting or the select board, for funding and staffing, it will sit there because they simply don't have the bandwidth to implement this plan.
Madam Chairman,
Peter?
in reference to Mr. Starbuck's comments about water quality and chemicals going into the harbor, it really falls on the individual property owners, town, businesses, people who live within the two harbor zones in both harbors. We have a fertilizer regulation on the books, which basically teaches commercial applicators how much and when to put fertilizer down on people's lawns. But the property owner can just say, don't do it. They can do what they want. And we know what those lawns look like. We've seen them. And the Natural Resources Department has a very difficult time enforcing that because you can't go on a person's private property. So throughout this process, with every single thing, almost every single thing, the phrase that kept coming up was public education. We need to educate the public on each of these things, and especially this. So yes, we know there are people out there who are very responsible property owners and they care about the harbor, but then there's probably just as many who don't, and they're not at this meeting, they're not watching this. So it's a long process to get everybody on board.
You need buy-in from them. Jeff, do you want to talk briefly about the landscapers are supposed to get certified, or? I know it's his favorite topic.
So I'm going to say something similar to what I said at the State of the Harbor Forum that was at the Great Harbor Yacht Club earlier this year. And some of this is Jeff Carlson personal opinion that's mixed in with this. Enforcement's great, right? Enforcement, it's nice to go around, and it's just not for fertilizer, right? For any rules or regulations is, whether it's Board of Health, Conservation Commission, HDC, fertilizer, whatever it is, enforcement's an important tool to deal with those instances where enforcement's needed to really address a problem. Really, the route, and fertilizer's really the greatest one on Nantucket that's really shown this, is you're really trying to implement cultural change in what's happening, right? You want to change the narrative around these subjects. So enforcement is picking up the outliers, not expected to be the tool to maintain the norm. And that's a little bit what the narrative has been, is we want roving patrols to go around and find all these evildoers who are doing all of these things. No, it doesn't work. We're not enabling people to be successful. We need to teach people to be successful, but more, we need the culture of the people on the island who are requesting those services to allow those people to be successful and understand what that is and understand what the rules allow you to do to be successful. And that it's hard, right? It's people have certain expectations. People have paid money to do things, to maintain their properties in certain ways, or to build their house to look a certain way or do those things. But you need to give them the tools to understand how they're contributing to the quality of the environment and natural resources, and how they're connected to the harbor, how they're connected to, wetlands, how they're connected to upland areas, and teaching them to be good stewards and understand why that's important. And that's what's so hard, because, you have an expectation, because you may live somewhere else where those rules don't exist and things can be different. So it's going to be a bit of a cultural shift and cultural change for people to do that, because I think, and this is the exact words I said, we can develop programs till we're blue in the face. Until the people that live here and our residents and visitors want to accept and participate in those programs, they will never be successful. It is not the town, it's the people that live here that make success. And that's, again, if someone wants to argue that out with me, that's great. I'd love to have that conversation with somebody, but that's, in my experience, what we've seen with a lot of those programs.
Emily?
And I would just completely support and echo what Jeff has said. And then also on top of that, I think continuing to provide the tools and the education for those property owners as well as landscapers is kind of something that we collectively have responsibility to help to do as well, which is what's part of the recommendations in this plan.
And we spent a lot of time in that water quality section.
Education,
Yeah.
education, every section is, because we know that, enforcement isn't the answer.
So,
But a lot of people don't know what the rules are for boating, specifically to our harbor.
So-
A lot of people come here, they don't know that we're a federal no discharge zone. A lot of people running boats around, they travel, have never even heard of a federal no discharge zone.
Yeah.
So it's education.
So what we've talked about is printed material and material online, or those little square things you put your fancy phones on. And I love my flip phone. And, various ways of getting it out to people, or having it at the chamber, having it, when you call in, or you dial into on your phone or on your computer. We have talked about having all these printed materials for people like me, and just getting the word out with various things on how to keep the harbor safe. These are rules or regulations, so when they come in, here it is. If you don't want to look on your phone, here it is. And there's all kinds of ways of disseminating this information, but we've talked a lot about that being a part of the education component. It's just, how do we get the information out to people before they even step foot here?
I'm going to add to that really quickly, and I know we've said education like 1,000 times, but I think, again, I think for this room, it's also, it's education, but I think it's, it starts in here for everyone in this room to encourage people to participate and be willing to learn and be willing to change when they receive that information. And sometimes that's difficult. Us included, right? Like working together to the common goal.
Except when I have to go to a fancy phone.
And then obviously taking it a step further for something like the fertilizer program, using that as a tool to provide the education that the landscapers need to know what the standards are. We have great best practices on island and great regulations, and so that program should be all about just providing the resources and the tools for the landscapers, and then as a community, we have to do the same for the property owners.
But that takes us back to what Jeff said again, it's a cultural change, because where a lot of people came from, they don't have the understanding of the impact on the harbor. They take care of your lawns beautifully. But they don't understand that there's except when Hummock, they get it, when Hummock Pond is shut down because it's toxic and you can't go for the perch and some of the other stuff that's in those ponds, and they're shut down because you will poison yourself if you catch those fish because of the runoff around the ponds. And unfortunately, the harbor plan doesn't cover the ponds, except for the sort of the ditch out there in Mattocket, which is in a pond, which has an effect on Long Pond. But those are the times when they understand that what goes on around water, whether it's a pond or the harbor, has an impact because you can't fish because you'll poison yourself. So there's any number of inroads into that landscape environment that we can probably use to get more information out to them. But it's a long, slow process. Jeff's been banging his head against the wall for a long time on this. He's gone bald from it.
That's not true at all.
Does anybody else have any questions out there they'd like to ask? You're just hanging out?
That means you guys
Is
did a
there
good job.
anything we didn't touch on in this plan that anybody can think of? I mean,
Yeah, we were trying to be
we were trying to think of
all-encompassing.
everything. and-
Yeah. I think the couple of the things that were brought up tonight about access is something we're going to have to really drill down on in the next meeting. And the historic part of it.
And I think also, in addition to access, that the public needs to be given more information as to where the public access points are. And we are, I'm speaking for the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee, I don't know whether they will agree with this, but I think one of the things we're going to try to do is make that more available to people and visitors. The days of getting a little map from, Cook Cycles or whatever with showing the access points with the beaches, or that's long gone, but, maybe there's ways you can do it on your phone or whatever, so that more people will know where the access points are.
Could I ask that lady, this handicap thing has got me wrapped right around
It's
the
going to
axle.
get me.
Where do you, maybe you don't want to share this, but I would
Francis
hope you would.
Street.
Where do you load your 90-some-year-old mother
Francis
on
Street.
Francis Street.
Francis Street.
Francis Street?
That's
Yeah,
not
or
that easy to
Kayak
get to
Beach.
either.
Francis Street.
Yeah.
Would you entertain the idea of going over to the town pier if there was a way to do that?
Oh, definitely, definitely. But when I went to the town pier, there's, she's not going to be able to get down.
Down to the boat.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I
that's the
see.
problem.
Yeah.
It's getting down to the boat
It's-
without that chair.
It's
Okay,
the
because
knees and the.
One of the
we
things
call
I'm
it a
gonna-
trolley.
One of the things I'm going to push for, I'm going to take it on as my own charge here, is that Great Harbor,
Harbor.
Nantucket Yacht Club, and the town pier, and I'm sure and probably Mattocket Marine, need to have those handicap rails that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Something that can support somebody to get down onto the boat. Now, I realize her situation is a little bit different, but
Well, even if there's like, let's say it's stairs going somewhere, if there's handrails, she can get up.
They need a
Right.
ramp. They
Right,
need a
but
ramp.
but
it's freewheeling and that's,
I see. All right,
there's
well,
no place to hold on to anything. And
Well, all of them should have those chairs, because I've seen those chairs, and I remember when there was one at the town pier.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to take, I'm
But
going to take this
they're
on.
really good. They probably got brutalized from some of the storms and some of the stuff that happened at the town pier over the years
Right,
of these storms.
right, probably that hurricane.
But they've improved them over time, because
Right.
I've seen them in pools. And there's no reason why the yacht club, both yacht clubs, the town pier and NIR down there on the, Straight Wharf in that
Right.
area, there's no reason why they can't have public access. Again, we're back to access for all.
Well, and they also have elderly people at their establishments.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
right. And that's the card that I'm gonna play is,
Yeah.
your clientele's not getting any younger either, and
We're not.
if you wanna keep them, gainfully using your facility, then I think this is something that you ought to entertain. It's also something I'm gonna entertain in future Chapter 91 licenses.
I might suggest that from the sounds of it, there's obviously some other folks that need to be involved. This would probably make it excellent agenda item at
Yeah.
our next
Yeah,
committee.
I think we
meeting.
need to have that on the agenda, because we need to flesh this out, because this isn't, we're not asking or ensuring, we're telling people, you need to do this. Because anywhere an able-bodied member of the public can access, it's actually against the ADA
Right.
that the disabled cannot also access a public access point. That is a problem for the town, and it's for, and some of these other ones can do it at their largesse, but they really need to do it.
Yeah, I would also say even just viewing sheds, like you used to be able to drive around and you could see the ocean. And you drive around now and all the houses have
Privilege.
landscaped themselves to the point
Privilege.
where you couldn't catch a glimpse of the ocean if you wanted to. But, unless you got up on a really tall hill, which we don't have very many of here.
And you know, privet hedge is an invasive species.
I am well aware.
Nasty.
I'm well aware. I pluck it all the time. Thank you. And I think, so for the fertilizer thing, and the educational piece and trying to get property owners buy-in, I'm just thinking a lot of the property owners out here really participate in a lot of fundraisers and, you know, from all the various groups have, environmental groups have fundraisers. And I think it'd be, you know, it'd be wonderful if there would be a way to include something like, you know, informationally in the fundraiser that, I don't know, that helps, because it is, you know, you're sort of like the dung beetle when you're trying to get cultural change from the bottom up, right? So I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility.
15 years. I haven't tried, like Jeff said, in Monomoy as an example. Steve around the association.
You got to go to the microphone.
Please identify yourself.
Yeah.
Ed Ornstein, member of the Monomoy Civic Association Board. For 15 years, we've been trying this. This subject, Jeff said he's kind of tired of it. He's going bald. I haven't lost my hair yet. The answer was it's going to take forever, and we're going to keep trying. And what Emily's doing with the information that she's putting out, we've had fundraisers, we've had the conversations, we've had Jeff and Emily waiting to come and speak and didn't get to speak, which is one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen in my life. So we're trying so hard.
So
But we have to keep trying with the education, and we're not going to change the behavior of people who want greener lawns than the guy next door until they decide that brown is the new green. We just gotta keep trying, but it's not gonna happen tomorrow. We just keep doing a little bit at a time.
A little bit at a time, yeah. Well, my brown is the new green, for sure.
I have lunar surface. I have lunar surface for 40 years.
But the other
There you
thing
go.
I would say, and probably someone here can direct me to more information or something, but like, I know there's a program for landscapers and professionals and things, but I'm just a homeowner and I haven't really seen any public outreach. And you guys know that I go to public meetings. I may not do a lot of online stuff because it's online. But, you know, so I haven't seen anything that's just sort of towards homeowners themselves that don't have landscapers.
If you go onto the
Online.
Land and Water website, look up our Grow Native for Nantucket initiative. And
Yeah.
if you sign up for our e-newsletter, you'll get some information for sure.
Excellent, thank you. I knew there'd be an answer.
Anybody else?
I think we're getting ready to.
Okay.
Bob Starbuck again. The other thing at the
Guys,
eelgrass
they'll
discussion,
pick you up and not
you
pick
had
you
the
up.
handouts that said which are you know, the most native plants, what are the things that can help, you know, those things should be more broadly disseminated, I would think.
There is a great brochure. The shows all the native plants of Nantucket, and that's also on the Land and Water Council's website.
And a lot of the landscape designers, I work with a lot of them because I do a lot of permit work, and a lot of the landscape designers now are gravitating to native plants and not stuff. And the HDC, Historic District Commission, is very cognizant of requiring year-round native vegetation when somebody's using screening. They will not accept privet hedge as screening. And most guys are not doing them. They're doing lelands, green giants, more native plants, cedars, any type of cedar, bayberry, holly. There's all kinds of stuff that people are using now because people are becoming more involved with native vegetation. So I don't work with any landscapers that aren't using native vegetation. If they're coming at me with a privet hedge, we're not doing it. So people are much more aware of that than they were 5 years ago even.
There's a great example of a groundsel hedge at the bottom of Cobblestone Hill as well that Julie Jordan put in.
I miss my honeysuckle going up that hill. I used to live at the top of that hill. The honeysuckle was my favorite thing. Okay, anything else from the public?
Nope. So I'll just remind people to help wrap up again. You'll have a couple more bites at the apple with public hearings. Again, if people or you run into someone and said, I wish I would have made the meeting and missed a comment, this was on YouTube. It'll be back up on the town YouTube channel. They can watch this again, and there's all of the comment ability through the Google form, or they can always email me or they can email Kim, and we'll get all that stuff in there. And again, the committee will still be meeting at regular posted meetings, so if people would like to participate in that way, that'd be great. And thank you all for participating and coming.
All right, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Do we need a
You do
motion
need to
to
adjourn.
adjourn?
Somebody needs to make a motion to adjourn. Okay, Steve made the motion to adjourn. Peter seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Let me just give us some dates when we're meeting again. Or do we have a date? Okay, shift that around, so